Hello, world. Well, for 5 more seconds, I can say it's week 1. Technically, it's not. It's week 2 now. But I forgot to hit record on Riverside, so there's no video this week. So for those of you watching on YouTube, apologies. You're just going to be staring at our beautiful logo with the cash and the title. But it's audio only this week. Completely fumbled. Hopefully we don't fumble our picks, though. So thanks for tuning in. Here's the show. And welcome back to Gridiron Campbell, the only podcast that puts its money where its mouth is. I'm your host, Rich Ryan, and I'm joined by the entire collective, The Disciple, Brett Colson, Donnie, DP Peters, and joining us from some park in the Bronx. So he doesn't have any video, audio only, Mo Nawara. Mo tried with the frozen coffee and the water bottle on the bench at a coffee shop, but the video just wasn't working. So we're just going to have to deal with the crisp audio from throw the BX up in the great city of New York. If you're watching this on YouTube, and unfortunately you can't see Mo's shiny face, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Listeners, rate and review on your podcatcher of choice. 5 stars only, like Quay Walker, whose Green Bay Packers, Brett's Green Bay Packers, are now 2-0 and well on their way to bringing the trophy back home to Lombardi Way. Go, Pack, go! We briefly talked about it, but for those that are unaware about the rules of Circa Sports Million, if you submit Thursday Night Football, you must submit your entire 5-pick card. So with guys traveling and capping not fully complete, it really wasn't a conversation. It was more so one text, everybody saying no, but it was a consensus pick from the collective last night. Mo, I see you unmute. What do you got to say?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, when do we become like the Daniel Negreanu of the the Circa contest, basically, where we have so much influence that we can text Benson and be like, change this rule, and then next year it just gets changed for us. You know what I mean?
One day, perhaps. We got to lean on maybe ODB, somebody within the space with a little more cred than us. This is something, I mean, we've discussed internally, that the purest handicapping contest would be something like dynamic lines, where you have to make 90 picks in a season, but you're not constrained to making X amount of points, picks per week. But I understand the constraints. I understand, as someone who works in the app world, the challenges when it comes to having an app environment that can handle all of this. So, and Circa's a great book, right? These are things that I'm sure they're thinking about and could be implemented in the future. So didn't have the Packers, unfortunately, last night, but looking to find 5 winners for week 2. We were 2-3 last week, landed a reverse body blow, but on the good end, we did get all 4 Survivor entries through, but so did literally everybody else on planet Earth. No carnage in Survivor last week. Rich, myself, Mo, and Brett went 2-3. A little Ron Burgundy moment there. I'll read anything that's on the cue card. We all went 2-3 last week. Man, I was so close to 4-1. Bears and Ravens, blown dicks everywhere in prime time. Brett had the Ravens as well. Almost had a body blow there. And DP bringing up the rear at 1-4. All right. Time for week 2, and we will start with split games, where there are, of course, 2 hosts on one side and 2 hosts on the other. And we start with a very, very interesting game in the Bayou, as the San Francisco 49ers travel to New Orleans to take on the Saints. The Saints are 3-point home dogs in this spot. They were 7-point home dogs on the look ahead, and that is because San Francisco 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy will be sidelined with a, quote, new variant of turf toe. That triggered me, that word variant. We're done with the variants. Can we please, God, have no more variants? There are other injuries as well, of course. Juwan Jennings picked up a shoulder injury on top of that phantom calf injury that he was dealing with in the preseason on the defensive line. Gross Matos hasn't practiced this week at all. I am the highest on the Niners. I had the Niners power ranked at 8 until I got yelled at, and then I moved them back towards the middle of the pack. I'm still the highest on the Niners. I don't understand wanting to back the Saints at this number. The Saints were as bad as advertised last week. Don't let a last-second pass attempt into the end zone fool you. This was a team that was 4 yards per play in the game. Slow on defense. Trey Benson busted off like a 50-yard run, and it was like the Benny Hill music was playing with Saints old ass guys trying to run him down and tackle him. This is 32 of 32. Nothing about last week changes my mind about that. And this is rule of backup quarterback for me. Is Brock Purdy worth all of these points, coming off of the key number of 7 and then falling all the way down to another key number of 3? I do not think so. And the most important thing that I saw last week from the Niners was Bobby Saleh's back, guys. This defense was humming up front, specifically against the pass. And that's literally all Saleh cares about. Saleh just wants to run wide 9. If you want to run against us, that's fine. We'll give up some yards between the 20s on the ground. We don't care. But when it comes to defending the pass, the Niners clamped down. Sam Darnold looked like a pumpkin when it mattered. And what is Spencer Rattler going to look like against a Bobby Saleh defense? I am very concerned about that. Mo, all of that out of the way, you have the New Orleans Saints in your top 5.
Yeah, just a lot of injuries for the 49ers. Kittle, obviously, as well. You're talking about their best pass catcher. And then I think when you look back at last week, I mean, you're dumping on the Saints pretty hard, but they were never out of it against a Cardinals team that we think is pretty good. And then you have a 49ers team that struggled to put away a Seattle team that I don't think is very good. So I think this line should maybe be a little bit under 3. I maybe was going to be, if the Saints were at 7, I probably would have been at 7 as well with Brock Purdy in the game. So, I just think with the lack of targets, Juwan Jennings looks like he's not going to play, I believe. So I just don't know. At this point, we've seen 2 good games basically in Ricky Pearsall's career. Like, I don't know if I can count on him to just come out and help lead this offense. This is going to be so many touches for Christian McCaffrey. And I did move the Saints up a hair, actually. So, they were 32 out of 32. I moved them up to 31. They were competitive. I think they can keep this reasonable and possibly beat the 49ers at home here.
Like, I think the Niners can cover scoring 17 points in this game. And you say that they had trouble putting away the Seahawks. It was 2 back-breaking interceptions from Brock Purdy that caused them.
So why is Mac Jones going to play better? Hold on a second.
This is just, I don't think Brock Purdy is anything but a slightly above replacement level quarterback. That's why. So
yeah, to be fair, Purdy last week, like, how could Mac Jones be any worse than that? Purdy was terrible last week.
He was awful. Just flat out awful. We move to the next contest, a Super Bowl rematch. The Philadelphia Eagles travel to Kansas City to take on Mo's Chefs. And we get DP involved because he's got the Birds in his top 5.
I'm concerned about this Chiefs team, especially with no Worthy. I mean, I like Mahomes. I don't know if he's got the cast around him to be able to be the Superman that he needs to be, especially in a spot like this. This Eagles team is very, very good. This Eagles defense specifically is very, very good. And part of me is, I feel like during the Super Bowl, we talked about it leading into that Super Bowl. we were willing to simply back Mahomes. At least I was, for sure, because it's Mahomes and you don't go against him. And yeah, I don't know, man. Kelsey's older. These pass catchers don't look that good. This defense for the Philadelphia Eagles looks very, very good. They're, I would say, going to look better this week than they did last week. I think they're also going to improve throughout the season if we want to look down the road, because they're a little bit on the younger side. And I mean, the Eagles can move the rock. Yeah, we might not necessarily love Jalen Hurts, but they get the thing done. I mean, it doesn't necessarily need to look pretty, and I don't think that they give two shits about it looking pretty, but I think they can move the ball here. So I like the Eagles here. I think they're rightfully favored in this spot. I cannot remember the last time the Chiefs were dogs at home, which is pretty wild to even just think about and put into actual words. But yeah, I'm on Philly here.
I am the other host that's on Philadelphia, but it is extremely low. The reason why I'm on the Eagles is the main thing, the first thing that Donnie said there, and it's just who is catching the ball for the Chiefs in this game. They're so desperate that they're talking about Xavier Worthy playing with a brace on. This guy is already playing pro football at like 165 pounds. Now you're going to trot him out there in a brace and hope he holds up in CTE murder ball. Chiefs were alarmingly bad defending the pass in Sao Paulo against the Chargers. I think it's fair to throw out most of that game because it's a game that happened in Brazil. So I honestly think my favorite look in this game, and it's a bet I made while I was capping this morning, I took the under on 47. I think these are two grindy teams that people don't think are grindy teams. The Eagles struggle to defend with the run against the Cowboys. I think the Chiefs will see that and want to cram the ball. Andy loves cramming the ball, especially in the regular season. And the Eagles always love cramming the ball. That's their identity, running with Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So I think this is going to be a low-scoring, grindy game. Don't have much an opinion on the side. Mo does, however. Mo loves his beloved Kansas City Chiefs.
First off, let me just open by saying, I want to implore everybody, if you're betting this game, wait until Worthy is announced out, hopefully, for the Chiefs. And hopefully the Chiefs go to 2.5 or 3. And you can just get
Worthy
the Chiefs.
What is the offense going to look like if there's no Xavier Worthy, Mo?
It's still Patrick Mahomes with bums. He won a Super Bowl with bums, guys. He's going to be fine. Hollywood Brown caught 100 yards worth of passes. It's going to be fine. It's the Chiefs at home against a mediocre quarterback.
Did you think it looked fine on Friday night on YouTube with Mr. Beast running around when you were texting us 0-17?
It's going to be fine.
See you next season.
It's a mediocre quarterback coming into Arrowhead. It wasn't anybody getting Eagles after their last coordinators left vibes of that first game. That offense was really ugly, guys. It was really slow. It was uninspiring. Yeah,
they looked very confused. No A.J. Brown getting involved. That guy, I mean, there has to be just a mandatory number of targets that go 11's way. And I would be reading books on the sideline too, my guy, if the plan was not to get me the football. Brett, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, I just agree with Mo. I agree with Mo. The thing with the pass catchers is, yes, I feel it's not great that these receivers are out, but I feel much better about Mahomes without receivers than I do about Mahomes without an offensive line that can protect him. Mahomes is just so good at improvising and taking what's given to him that, like Mo said, he won a Super Bowl without any receivers. Rashee Rice finally started to come together during the playoff run, but I mean, they were there without anything around him, and that's why he won MVP that year. I get the same vibes this year. He looked great on Friday. It was not Mahomes. Mahomes was not the reason they lost that game on Friday night. I think this line's fair. I think the Chiefs are in a pretty good spot to rebound.
We move to our final split game, a battle of cats, as the Jacksonville Jaguars travel north to Ohio to take on the Bengals. The Bengals are 3.5-point favorites in Circa, and we return to DP, who has the highest opinion on this game. and he's once again laying the wood, this time with the home team, looking for the Bengals with a bounce back.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jaguars' win last week was a little bit paper tigery in some ways. I mean, I wanted to like Bryce Young coming into the season. I wanted to give the Panthers some improvement points coming into the season. We talked about it when we did the props pod, and I picked Bryce Young to go some overs, but I mean, they looked bad. There was like this weird weather delay, wasn't there? I mean, listen, fully transparent, I did not watch any damn football because I was hanging out with Mickey and Minnie Mouse. But other than that, I tried to catch up with things where I could. Like the weather delay kind of, I feel like maybe messed with things a little bit there, messes with your flow. I don't know how I would react if I was an athlete and all of a sudden, you're basically sitting around twiddling your thumbs for a half hour, an hour, whatever the heck it is. So, yeah, I feel like after that they weren't that great, the Panthers, and it didn't look like they were that great at all in general. So, if we want to talk about those power rankings, I dropped them to the bottom and moved the Saints ahead of them after that week. And so I don't know how much stock I can put into this Jaguars team against that defense. Now, the Bengals, I think, if I don't give a lot of stock to the Jaguars now coming off that week one, I think this is a decent get right spot for the Bengals. Also in a spot where I don't really think anyone's going to really be on them in the contest. I mean, in my opinion. What, Brett? You're always the guy here, and you always make these fucking faces when I say that. I never try and read it, but I'm just telling you that's my honest opinion. Because
I'm seeing 50-50 handle right now, so I don't know why there would be a strong opinion.
Also, it could go either way.
Bengals.
I mean, I just read that the Bengals always start slow, right? They had a stupid game in week one. They scored. What did they have in the second half? 7 yards of passing. I saw or offense total.
Dude, they had like 150 yards total.
Yeah, so are people really just going to be clicking them, laying 3.5 against the Jaguars, who, if you're just going to look at like box scores, feel like they handled the Panthers pretty well? I mean, I don't know. I'm going to fade the Jaguars here. I'm going to try and buy back in on the Bengals, and specifically this Bengals offense. And I mean, listen, yeah, there's a bit of concern with this Bengals defense and the offensive line. I get it, but I'm just going to back Burrow here kind of blindly in a spot that I think is pretty good for them overall, and they're just going to right the ship.
Brett, I'll get to you in a second because you have the highest opinion on Jacksonville. But Mo, you set up this scenario in the preseason. You said you hope the Jags win by margin in week one, so you could back up the Brinks truck on the Bengals, and then you clicked the Jaguars. So I needed an explanation.
Well, I didn't think the Bengals were going to be that bad. I mean, that was
week
horrific,
one Bengals.
guys. 140
it's week one
yards
Bengals.
of offense.
It's week one Bengals. That's predictive. Just throw it out.
Against a Browns defense that I'm already said I don't really think is that great. I don't know, man. I didn't think the Bengals played well, and I'm seriously concerned about that team.
All right, Brett, pick up the torch for Jacksonville.
Well, I am really curious what the contest does with this game after last week. Jacksonville with the blowout win. Maybe people buy in that this is a sleeper playoff team this season, and they are maybe even better than the Bengals. But Cincinnati's historically a contest darling, and I do wonder if people look at this as an obvious rebound spot at home, week one behind them against the division rival. I do think the Bengals are going to get a decent amount of love here, just because people love taking this offense, this like firepower offense. This is typically a spot where I would just be on the team that looked horrible last week, and like this is a 2-point move off the look ahead. But I just don't value the Bengals as a good team. So I had this as a pretty fair line, and if I do think there's maybe a little leverage, I do think the Bengals are going to be a little more popular than the Jags here. So that's really where I ended up and why I was on the Jaguars.
All right, split games in the rear view. Let's get to some lone wolves. 8 lone wolves this week. Donnie and I both have a trio, and we'll start with DP, who continues to hate the team in his backyard, laying 3.5 points on the road with the visiting Los Angeles Chargers against his now Las Vegas Raiders.
Didn't I pick the Raiders last week? What are you talking about? Like, just making up narratives, man. It's just unbelievable. I liked what the Raiders put together on offense. I think having Geno Smith in a lot of play action does play to his strengths and allow him to thrive better than not. This Raiders offensive line looks pretty freaking bad. I mean, one obvious thing here is, I mean, I think Brock Bowers is going to play, but obviously monitor that injury. And yeah, the offensive line, I know they went into New England and they beat the Patriots, but just like I talked about with the Jaguars over the Panthers, I mean, are the Patriots really that good? I don't know. It's kind of like the Raiders offense looked all right against a team that probably is a bottom 5 team. I mean, like, what do you want me to say? And this Chargers team, I mean, they played well. Justin Herbert played well. He looked good. And if he keeps playing like this, then they're going to be a pretty big force in the league this season, I think. And there's going to be a lot of people that we're going to have to hear from. Those Justin Herbert truthers are just going to, be jamming it down our throat all day. The Chargers offensive line, I know we had questions after that Slater injury. They looked all right in week 1. Probably a little bit of a different animal this week going up against Max Crosby. Yes, but I'm probably going to be on the Raiders in a lot of spots to expect them to be frisky. I just think, while I did like what they showed on offense in week 1, the Chargers are a superior team here, and I really do worry about that Raiders offensive line, and that's where it all starts. So yeah, I'm on the Chargers.
Like you said, Brock Bowers' injury, the biggest aspect of this game. Pete Carroll seems very confident that Bowers is going to play in this game. I've been the highest amongst the collective on the Raiders throughout the preseason. I'm currently the highest in power rankings. Brett's been putting together our power rankings every week. I've got them 15th in the league. And this is just a sell spot off of Quentin Johnson looking like Jerry Rice and the Los Angeles Chargers scoring almost every time they touch the ball. Justin Herbert, kind of a coming out party after a lot of people have poo-pooed his excellence over the last couple of years. They saw it come to fruition in a dub, and they're like, oh, this guy's pretty good, as if they've just not been watching football of late. But what if the Raiders are just good, right? What if the Raiders are just a top half football team that scraps their way to like a 9-win season? If that's the case, then the Chargers being 3.5-point road favorites in this spot is ludicrous, right? So the fact that it moved off of the 3 on the look ahead and the Chargers got that half point of value, I'm scooping that up. And with the Chargers being 54% of the handle right now, I'm curious as to how the contest is going to handle this, because it is a very valuable half point. So I am a little worried that the Raiders might show some love, the local Vegas Raiders, but I just think this is an obvious spot. I've got them in my account as well. I have a sprinkle on Money Bet Line. Mo, you too love the Raiders. Pile on.
Yeah, I'm not going to move all the way off of my Chargers preseason position that I don't think this is a great team, just because they came out and played a great game against the Chiefs, a team that they often play great games against, and a team that everybody plays great games against. Like, let's be honest, the Chiefs, they're coming off a huge win on national TV that everybody watched, where they played a really strong game. You mentioned Johnson. I mean, what about Keenan Allen? Just back from the absolute dead. I mean, a guy who Keenan
was good last year. I don't know what this narrative is.
What?
Keenan,
oh my God, the Bears.
Keenan commanded like a 26% target share last year. It's just that Caleb Williams is just an awful quarterback.
The team desperate for offense just was like totally fine letting him walk. But
they drafted
the Raiders,
Luther Burden and Colston Loveland. Why would they keep the corpse of Keenan Allen?
Well, I guess we're going to find out if he's a corpse or not, or if he was just torching a Chiefs team that was half asleep for the first half. But I think that this Raiders offense is way too good to be 3.5-point dogs here. I don't believe in this defensive front for the Chargers. I was very surprised the Chiefs couldn't run the ball, but even if the Raiders can't really pound the rock here. I think Gino's going to find some space downfield against a secondary that I don't think is really all that great either. And it's Gino indoors at home getting 3.5 points. This is just crazy to me. I mean, worst case scenario, they're down 10. The back door should be open here.
Keenan is going to be able to beat zone until his legs discontinue to function. That guy just knows how to do it. DP's
It's so good.
Yeah, DP's two other lone wolves are both low, so it's going to be more about the other side of the game. But he's got the Vikings laying 3.5 at home against the Falcons. Talk about Minnesota, DP.
I mean, I don't have much to say here other than, to me, this is a field play in the fact that I was questioning if JJ McCarthy could lead this team. We talked about how this roster is really, really good. And simply put, they went out and got a win in week 1. And I think there's going to be a lot of buy-in there, and when you have that much talent around you, I think it can go a long way. So I'm kind of just going to blindly back this team right now. As you said, it is low. I guess there's a chance JJ McCarthy obviously just falls off, but if he can just be serviceable with the team that's around him, I think this team is going to be fine throughout the course of the season. So yeah.
Brett's got the highest opinion on the traveling Falcons. They bubbled his top 5. Oh no, they're in your top 5. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, they're definitely in my top 5. I mean, originally when this week started, it was the Falcons injury report that was concerning entering the week, but now it seems like Mooney and London are trending towards playing, which is huge, and the line's moving again with that news. Several key injuries to watch for the Vikes. Christian Darrisaw, who didn't play week 1, practiced Wednesday, but then was downgraded to limited Thursday. Never like to see that, although maybe that was part of the plan. Who knows? Definitely going to watch that one on Friday. Andrew Van Ginkel, a huge piece of this Vikings defense. That's a big one. He needs to be cleared for a concussion before he can play on Monday. This is just one of those week 2 overreaction spots. I feel like between a team that probably should have won last week and lost, and the other team that probably should have lost last week and won. Metrics pointed to Atlanta deserving to beat the Bucs. They looked like the better team to me, but the Bucs were slightly better on downs that mattered. And as we know, that is everything in football. And we only have a 1-game sample to use so far for the season. Don't
forget special teams.
Yeah,
too. That was
but that's predictive.
Well.
Younghoe Koo being a corpse is predictive now.
Yeah, it
and
is.
He'll be the place kicker in this game for the Atlanta Falcons.
Still hurts. But yeah, I do expect Penix and this offense to be very good. And the hope is that they improve on 3rd and 4th down as the season goes forward. Meanwhile, Minnesota's offense was just completely inept for 3 quarters last week, and all people remember and talk about is the way McCarthy looked in the 4th quarter. I really like this team, but I see this as a good spot to sell them off the primetime win that they could have easily lost to Caleb Williams. So I think the Falcons with the hook are the play here.
I'm officially concerned about the Falcons. I came into this week wanting to find every reason to love the Vikings, but the injury report, as Brett noted, is the reason why I switched my ex over from Minnesota to Atlanta, specifically because the way Flores runs this defense, he needs those key components like Van Ginkel on the field because there is so much communication going on that if there is miscommunication, all these exotic mug looks that fall back into deep twos, like it could be an absolute disaster if there's miscommunication. And if anyone's going to take advantage of it, it's Penix, who is willing to chuck the ball downfield, although his ADOT was mysteriously low in this game. I don't know if that is a concerted effort against the Bucs, or they were unable to hold up against the pressure, or why.
Well, all I had to do was dump it off to Bijan for a 50-yard play. So
right, and that's another reason.
That's
another reason why I'm kind of concerned about the Falcons. I thought their offense really stunk last week, right? Outside of one Bijan electric, amazing play, like they're a Penix Superman reach away from losing that game by perhaps an even larger margin. And this recouped defensive line that spent so many assets in the offseason was 31st in pressure rate last week with Tristan Wirfs out for Tampa Bay. If you can't get pressure on JJ McCarthy, the way KOC dials up this offense, I think they might just cook against this Falcons team. So, yeah, I too am on the Falcons, but much, much lower. The other lone wolf, the last lone wolf for DP, we've got him laying the wood with the Arizona Cardinals at home against the Carolina Panthers. This is a full 7 in the contest, DP.
Well, if I want to consider them for Survivor, I can't honestly put a check mark next to the Panthers. Therefore, I am clicking the Cardinals and I'm sticking them at the bottom of my card, and we will likely discuss this later on the pod.
It's so funny. It's so funny you say that, because I've had some Survivor thoughts all week, and that led me to click a lone wolf as well that we'll get to. So I understand your sentiment fully. The market is telling me I'm an idiot, because one of the first bets I made this week was Carolina plus 6.5, and I put a third of the unit on the money bet line as well. Why are we reacting so strongly to what we saw last week on both sides here? Carolina, of course, got their butt kicked. But like DP said with Jacksonville, weird game, weather delay, snowballed out of place. The left tackle was missing because his appendix burst earlier in the week. He's back at practice. Ike Ekwonu. It just seemed like it could have just been chaos for Carolina, which might not be the case this week. And then why are we giving the Cardinals credit for barely holding on against 32 of 32? Spencer Rattler almost going in for the game-tying score at the end for Juwan Johnson. I think this is a crazy overreaction. 82% of the handle is still on Arizona, even with the line climbing and climbing and climbing. So I wanted to love the Panthers this week. The market told me I'm an idiot. So I ticked this down to the middle, and I have the strongest opinion on Carolina. So unless one of you guys wants to speak up, we can move on. I'm seeing a no from Brett.
We'll talk more about the Cardinals later.
Yes, we will. The Survivor segment's very fascinating game in the desert. Okay, let's go to myself. I also have a trio of lone wolves, and we'll start with the greatest football team. Miami and the Dolphins, the greatest football team. I got cute last week, guys. I got real cute. After banging the drum all off season, saying that Mike McDaniel would be fired by Halloween, I put an X next to the Dolphins because everybody else thought the same thing, and I just had this like contrarian itch that I had to scratch when I should have just faded the Dolphins like everybody else on the planet. This team is horrific. I think they're in store for another ass kicking this week. You look at the injury report, this is absolutely rule of Mo. Something called Storm Duck has not practiced this week due to an ankle injury. Starting cornerback for the Miami Dolphins. If something Storm Duck can't suit up, who is his backup? Terrifying stuff for Miami. Doing my capping this morning, you know what I fired? I fired over 43. I think there's going to be points in this game, because who is Miami going to stop if they're giving up that many points to the Colts, and the Colts take their foot off the gas towards the end of the game? I think Miami can find ways to score to keep the scoring going in this game, but I'm with the droolers here. Everyone's going to be on the Patriots. I'm lining up with them. This Dolphins team, it's done. It's over, DP. How could you put Miami in your top 5? It's over.
Rule of team that looked the absolute worst last week.
Thank you, Donnie.
I mean, this is a fairly soft spot against the Patriots team that didn't exactly look that great themselves. And listen, we can say what we want from Miami. I'm super down on them too. They do have some talent on the roster. I mean, like they could explode for a game or two here. And it's not like the Patriots are exactly freaking world beaters. You know, Drake May didn't even look that well in week 1. So yeah, I mean, listen, Miami's not going to go 0-17. I'm sorry. Like, I'm sorry to burst everyone's bubbles. So this is probably one of their few wins. I don't think there's going to be many wins, but come on, this is as good of a bounce back spot as you're going to get. You get to go home, you get the crappy Patriots. Like, I mean, come on, man. Who's going to click Miami? Seriously, who in the universe is going to click this team?
That doesn't mean it's a good decision. Mo, you said who looked the worst. You've got them ranked 28th, so they're damn near the worst in the league.
Yeah, but I don't think the Patriots are that much better. So I think the Dolphins better than 2.5, whatever it might be, 2.5. I think I have to click them. I mean, they still have talent on offense. They're like Donnie said. I mean, Donnie made a lot of good points. They're not just, this isn't the worst team ever where they're just going to come out and lay down, get crushed every game. I mean, and yeah, this is just like the team that looked the worst last week, man. And it's against a team that I'm on the record, I don't believe in. Under 7.5 wins. Great start for that last week. Losing a home game to the Raiders. I don't, guys, we still have no idea if Drake May is good. Like, we know Tua can move the ball in this offense.
Trust me, I was one of the lowest people on the Patriots in the preseason process. I thought their win total was ridiculously high. That being said, I think the Dolphins are just that bad, and I think it's going to crater. I mean, Tyreek was crashing out at 2:15 p.m. Eastern time in week 1. Like, what is he going to do if the Patriots... I mean, he's like plus 350 to Antonio Brown take his shirt off and leave the stadium. Like, this is within the range of outcomes for Tyreek in one of these games. This next one, this is my Survivor click brain. And you know what? I'm slapping myself on the wrist because one of the first seasons we did this show, Mo, in this exact spot, I think it was Falcons at Titans. Falcons were -4, Matt Ryan outside on the road, and Mo brought up the point, everybody's going to wake up hungover on Sunday. Do I still have money in that account? Oh, put it on the Falcons, favorites in Tennessee. And I put an X next to Rams -5.5 in Tennessee because the Rams, spoiler alert, are my Survivor lean this week. And I was like, if they're going to be my Survivor lean, how can I take +5.5 with the Titans? But I think if you do look at this injury report with J.C. Latham not practicing, Quandre Diggs not practicing, the state of the Titans pass catchers last week in Denver, I think we are a couple of weeks away from this Tennessee offense melding a little bit and getting their stuff together against a Rams defense, which is very good, that gave the Houston offense a lot of fits last week. They were 8th in adjusted sack rate last week. LA. And yes, I'm worried about this Tennessee defense and their own pressure and pass rush against a statue that is Matthew Stafford. But kind of like that Niners-Saints game, I think the Rams can get to this number in a low-scoring game because I just don't know how the Titans are going to put together efficient offensive possessions. Brett disagrees. He's got the Titans in his top 5.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is another tough matchup for Cam Ward, certainly. But this time he's not playing on the road, in hostile conditions, at altitude. He was terrible last week. Well, the entire offense was terrible. His
Calvin
teammates
Ridley
certainly let him down.
was
Was he terrible?
His
I thought
coach
he was
let him
pretty
down.
decent
He was
at
okay.
times.
But that's the problem, is Brian Callahan is going to let him down every single week that he has a headset on.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's got a full game of lessons to pull from, coming off a disappointing debut last week for sure. But there's a decent chance this Titans team is still being undervalued by the market, even after getting a cover last week. People look at the raw offensive numbers and the point total last week, and they draw the conclusion that this offense is hopeless. But like you guys said, there was some good stuff from Ward. I mean, he was flinging it. It looked good out of his hands. And yeah, his pass catchers let him down. His entire offense really let him down. I can't believe they didn't challenge the I am an or catch that was rolled out of bounds. Like, that's the kind of stuff where you lose faith in a coach. But I still think there's enough here. And there were enough positives against an elite Broncos defense on the road for me to back Tennessee here at home. And even more, this defense is solid. Bo Nix was dreadful last week. And all Bo Nix did last year was beat up bad defenses. It's clear that this is not a bad defense. 7th in success rate for this defense last week, 5th in EPA per play. They forced 4 turnovers. I don't expect this to be a walkover from Matt Stafford and Sean McVay. I think the Titans are a pesky team probably every week, and potentially an underdog cover machine, which I say this one year after they broke my heart week after week last year, but I do think there's something there with the Titans where I think there's going to be value on this team every week.
I will definitely be on the Titans later in the season, I think, but I still
That's
think
fair.
the season is very young. Honestly, I don't think they will because his tenure has been so short, but if they can Callahan, then I think I'll be even more intrigued by the Tennessee Titans.
He did the worst coaching job of any coach last week. I'm not kidding when I say that. That was incredibly awful work.
It feels like Eberflus and Caleb Williams all over again. Like you invest in a new quarterback who needs nurturing, who needs the right type of coaching around him, and you just don't have it. And it just could be a completely wasteful year if you don't have that marriage correct. My last one, battle of some roars. Oops, pressing incorrect buttons. As the Bears travel to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions are minus 5.5. I quite literally flipped a coin in this game, and it came up by the Lions off of that dreadful divisional loss. And don't yet buy into Ben Johnson, who, outside of one scripted drive, looked kind of mid because his quarterback is still Caleb Williams, who just might not be it. DP disagrees strongly, not strongly, but has the Bears close to his guard.
I mean, I worry about this Lions team. I mean, how can you not? I don't think that. I think that the concern we had coming into the season about the coordinators leaving, I don't know. It's obviously a small sample size, but looks to be somewhat legit to an extent. I mean, can they move the ball here? I don't know. 5.5 is a lot this early in the season. I hate this game in general. I guess at the end of the day, I kind of just took the points. I'm not really thrilled to be backing Caleb Williams either. But yeah, and the other thing is like, if anyone knows the Lions team in and out, it's obviously got to be Johnson, right? So yeah, this is kind of just like, I'm just going to click on the coach going up against his former team that is now without him, and they look like they're struggling a little bit without him. So yeah.
The other thing is, isn't Dan Campbell quintuple circling this game? The guy who left for a divisional opponent. There might be some real champing at the bit this week in the Motor City to kick Ben Johnson's ass in his first game in Detroit. We go to Brett, whose only lone wolf is in his top 5 as he's lining up, I'm seeing, with 71% of the handle to lay 2.5 points at home with the Houston Texans. My buttons are
I'm shocked that I'm a lone wolf here. I talk a lot of crap about this Texans offense, and that talk was backed up by a pitiful performance last week. But this defense is still elite, potentially top 3 in the league, definitely top 5 defense in the league. I thought they were playing the best defense in the entire league at the end of last season. And it looked very good last week against the Rams, too. 2nd in the league in adjusted line yards, 10th in EPA per play against a good Rams offense. Meanwhile, the Bucs offense was not good last week. Mayfield was terrible. And people will remember the Igbuka highlight reel and his coming out party, but they were 28th in offense success rate, only 4.6 yards per play. They got outgained by the Falcons last week by, I think, 0.4 yards per play. And that's coming against a Falcons defense that, like you said, Rich, they brought in a bunch of young pieces that did not get any pressure last week. And this is a much stiffer test for Baker Mayfield. There are reports that both Godwin and Wirfs could play this week, which kind of blew my mind yesterday because I did not see that coming. So I'm going to be monitoring that pretty closely on Friday. We might not have all the info on that before Circa picks lock tomorrow. But even still, like, how effective are these guys going to be against a top tier defense? Like, is Tristan Wirfs at 80% better than Graham Barton at left tackle? Yeah, probably, but he's still lining up against Daniil Hunter and Will Anderson. He would have his hands full if he was 100%. And if Wirfs is out, you've now got a center playing left tackle against this elite unit. Barton's a good center, but like, let's be real here. And be honest about where the advantages are in this matchup if Wirfs is out again. This is a stock high, stock low spot by the Texans while the offense is bottomed out. Last week, the offensive line faced a great Rams front. That is not the case this week. The Bucs typically have to blitz to get pressure. So I think Stroud and Nico have a strong week through the air, and the Texans get it done with defense against a Bucs offense that I think is regressing back towards where they should be.
So is this just a pure matchup thing? Because you have the Bucs power
Correct.
ranked higher
Yes.
than the Texans. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
it is.
I think generally this line is just fair. What leaned me towards the Bucs more is just I think this game is an under candidate. I told the Discord that I wasn't going to tease this week, and I broke my rule already. In week 2, I teased Bucs and the under. Bucs up to 8.5 with the under of 49 because, like you, I have just as many questions about the Bucs offense after last week, but I have just as many questions about the Houston Texans offense with that offensive line and absolutely no running game whatsoever. Still cramming Nick Chubb, something Ogunbowale playing meaningful reps at running back.
I think he's done. I think Dare is over.
Yeah. I think that thing is cooked too. Houston is at its best when Nico is running deep crossers and beating people in the intermediate deep part of the field. And the guys that Houston drafted in Higgins and Knoll are field stretchers in their own right. But in order to stretch the field, you got to protect up front. So maybe this is just going to be a lot of high leverage spots where if the Bucs are blitzing, Brett, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe if the Texans can pick up and Stroud can hit those big plays, then Houston might be in order here. But I don't know. I see a really grindy game where I'm just going to lean towards the dog, but nobody really has a strong opinion on the Bucs in opposition. Mo, you round us out. You are laying 3 points with Aaron Rodgers at home against the Hawks. They're in the middle of your card. Talk about Pittsburgh.
Yeah, just a situation where I know a lot of people were dumping on Aaron Rodgers last week, and I saw some pretty poor sacks for sure that he took. But these injuries in the Seattle secondary are really piling up, guys. I mean, there's like 3 corners out now. I mean, if we count Devin Witherspoon as a corner, I know he's kind of like plays some nickel and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know what is left in this back end for the Seahawks. So if that's the case, and we know how I feel about Sam Darnold playing under pressure, possibly against a good pass rush here, offensive line that I just don't believe in at all. So it just seems like a pretty bad spot. I had this at 3.5. So I do think the Steelers are a hair undervalued here. I know that I have these teams power ranked close, but yeah, the Seattle injuries in their secondary plus what I think is a mismatch up front has me thinking maybe the Steelers should be 3.5 point favorites here.
Neither Witherspoon nor Emenwari have practiced this week in that secondary. And then yesterday, Julian Love was downgraded from a limited participant to a DNP. Man, I entered this game wanting to be on your side, Mo, wanting to love the Steelers. But as a Jets fan, I think one of my biggest fears is that like TJ Watt is just dust and the Steelers defense isn't what everyone thinks it is. And that's one of the reasons why the Jets were able to feast last week. And if that's the case, they can just never be 3-point favorites in this spot. Low total. I'm on the under here. I got under 40.5. So if I'm thinking low total, I'm going to lean towards the dog, but not as strongly as Brett Colson, who has Seattle in his top 5.
This is very much a contest play. This is the classic stock high, stock low, potential leverage spot for Seattle. And look, Seattle, this offense was anemic in week 1. There are major concerns with the offensive line and Sam Darnold. But to me, you also have to sell Aaron Rodgers off that 4 touchdown game last week. What a weird game that was. I still can't believe the Steelers won that game, just having watched it. I don't know that we'll ever see an Aaron Rodgers game like that again. So I'm fully on board the selling of the Rodgers. And again, like Pittsburgh, another contest darling. I feel like people are going to be back on the Steelers this week. So I think this is a potential for really nice leverage in the contest for Seattle.
The biggest bull case for Seattle in this spot, if you could ignore those secondary injuries, is that Seattle was 3rd in pressure rate in the NFL last week and 24th in blitz rate. Rodgers was absolutely terrified of pressure last week, tried to throw the game away, throwing the ball right at Brandon Stevens, who unfortunately was wearing the wrong cleats, fell down, and dropped a football thrown directly at him. The narrative changes completely if the game ends on that play, as opposed to a 60. This is something I've just been losing my mind about this week. Chris Boswell is an amazing place kicker, but we're like normalizing the fact that this dude on the road outdoors hit a 60-yard field goal to win the game. The Jets were fully aware of his career long, fully aware of where they wanted to stop the Steelers on that drive, executed what they wanted to execute, but the guy just kicked the ball 100 yards through the goalpost. So, yeah, the Steelers' Tomlin voodoo, undefeated, remains so. And we'll see. Well, it'll be put to the test again in week 2. What's up, Mo?
Speaking of special teams and kicking, at what point do we start getting concerned about McDonald? McDonald, after what he straight up said, their models say, okay, we need to go here. And then he tried to kick, and it just ended up being a disaster. Like, maybe this guy doesn't have it, guys.
Defensive coaches. Alarms are always up with defensive coaches. I've got the Patriots, Rams, and Lions. DP's got the Chargers, Vikings, and Cardinals. Brett's on the Texans. Mo's on the Steelers. Let's make a winning card for week 2.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire.
With the best record last year, I break the tiebreaker from week 1, so I'm up first. I'm willing to change this if there's negative injury news at the most important skill position player on the team, but it doesn't sound like it's going to trend in that direction. So give me the Raiders plus 3.5 at home against the Chargers. Mo, you're up next, and you're staying in the AFC West.
Yeah, I've got the Chiefs, guys. In Mahomes, we trust this week, and we might be. This could be an amazing contest play, guys. If Worthy is out, and even if he's not, I feel like people are going to be on the Eagles. I mean, I think the Chiefs might be a contest play, and we might get a bad line here, which might make it even more of a contest play if Worthy ends up being announced out early. But I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. But I still like the Chiefs here.
This is lining up to be a classic pros versus Joe's spot where literally everybody I know is loving Philadelphia this week, and I think we'll be called morons by some of our biggest fans based on this selection. Brett's up next. It's only week 2, but we've got a lone wolf on the card.
I'm also willing to change this one, depending on injury news that we get on Friday and potentially Saturday, and also because it is a lone wolf. Although you guys don't seem too strong on the other side, but I have the Houston Texans minus 2.5.
Rar, rar. Bulls can make that sound. DP bringing up the rear with another rar, rar.
I'm completely unwilling to change this one. Just kidding. I'm happily to tinker throughout all my stuff, but I got the Bengals as my number 1 player. Unlike Brett, I think they're not going to be as popular. But if
I
we'll
have
see.
to sweat,
maybe they are that contest darling.
If I have to sweat this idiot Joe Burrow every single week, you guys are going to hear it from me. All right, let's get to the collective.
Who had them on the card last? Sorry, who had them on the card last week?
Mo just
Idiot
week
Mo.
Week 1 just lining up to back a road favorite in week 1. Love it.
Okay.
Let's get
I don't want the Bengals on the card every week, please, guys.
the collective pick. One of 3 consensus picks this week.
The collective chooses
Jets. Jets. Donnie is shaking his head. No.
I'm doing the beat. Jets, Jet. I'm not shaking my head. I don't know why I was moving left or right.
6.5 point home dogs to Brett's.
The Bills make me wanna.
Okay. Lot to unpack here. Are the Jets the best offense in the league? Obviously, no. They cooked last week. I was bullish on Tanner Engstrand coming into the season because Zach Rosenblatt at the Athletic was very optimistic on him. And Zach is very much in the vein of traditional Big J journalist, skeptical of everything. People are always lying to me. This is not as good as people make it out to seem. But when he did his background reporting, when he went to Detroit, when he talked to people around Tanner Engstrand, he was very bullish on what he could bring, his philosophies, and what he wanted to deploy as the OC. That continued throughout camp as he laid eyes on what they were doing, what their principles were. And the Jets looked and acted like Lions light last week. A lot of cramming the ball, a lot of explosive play attempts and successions with the Garrett touchdown, some of the Brees runs, the Brees screens, and a quarterback who traditionally is not good, looking confident, poised, guys in his face, didn't matter. He stepped up, knew where the ball needed to go and delivered. So I think the range of outcomes has the Jets being closer to an average offense than we anticipated. And if that's the case, I'm willing to give this defense a little bit of a pass for last week because they lost on some explosive plays where, again, Brandon Stevens slipped, fell, Calvin Austin was running free into the end zone. And the biggest thing that nobody from a national perspective is talking about is that Jermaine Johnson, off an Achilles, played damn near every snap last week and looked like Jermaine Johnson. And in this game specifically, Jermaine Johnson has kind of been the Josh Allen killer because the Jets maintain very disciplined rush lanes historically against Josh. They don't let him scamper. So I think the Bills are on upset watch this week, Brett. I think the Jets can just flat out win this game outright.
I don't think you're wrong. Not only do I think the Jets are a really strong backdoor cover here, but I think they're very live to win this game outright. The Bills, they're great because of their quarterback and how this offense operates. Low turnover worthy plays. They take care of the ball. They're incredibly efficient. Last week was the absolute worst matchup for them in terms of style. And despite getting bulldozed for 55 minutes, they found a miraculous win. They never should have won last week. They got bulldozed because this defense is a mess. The secondary especially. We talked about it last week. A lot of holes there. Matt Milano and Terrell Bernard both had bad games last week too. The best of Milano was probably way behind him. This guy was a Pro Bowler 2 years ago. He's not that anymore. The only guy who played well for the Bills defense last week, and he was awesome, was Ed Oliver. And now Oliver's on the injury report after missing practice on Thursday. That's a huge loss. So I think the Jets I think they could play with the Bills if Justin Fields takes care of the ball. I think they'll be in the game if they don't turn the ball over. And with the spread south of 7 in the contest too, Circa's daring people to click Bills. And I think a lot of people will. I think people are fully bought in and not so much on the Jets quite yet. So maybe there won't be a lot of leverage opportunity, but I think it will open up more of a balanced, more balance with the way people select this game.
DP are the lowest on the Jets, so put a pin on Gang Green.
I mean, they looked good last week. I thought, You know, I mean, I do have some concerns with this Bills team. Just, I thought coming into the season they would start a little bit slower, especially on the defensive side of the ball. You know, pleasantly surprised that they were able to pull out that win in week 1. But I mean, I think playing 6.5 here is a lot to ask in a divisional game, right? I think this is going to probably surprise a lot of people in that it's going to be closer than people expect. Which is fine. You know, it's still very early. It's week 2. You know, I'm not going to go too crazy if, let's say, an upset does happen or whatever. So, yeah. I mean, I like the Jets in this spot. It's going to be good.
My biggest fear from a Jets perspective is if Glenn calls, well, I shouldn't say calls because Steve Wilkes is in charge of calling the defense. If the Jets are too aggressive on defense, I honestly think you roll out the most vanilla cover 2, cover 3, keep everything in front, make Josh play drop back quarterback, be disciplined, make throws. Don't let Josh Allen be a moose running around, making crazy plays. Just keep everything in front, play vanilla, let the D-line do its job, and try to stay in the game.
Which is such a crazy thing to say about Josh, because like 4 or 5 years ago, that's what you wanted from Josh Allen, was to get him outside the pocket and doing crazy things. But he's such a different quarterback now to where like he's doing crazy things and they're like he's doing good things with them. He's not throwing the ball into like double coverage. He's making the smart reads, and it's just wild how good he is. So I mean, that is obviously a concern. Is that Josh Allen can just take over a game by himself. But I do think, just given the holes on the defense right now, the Jets are definitely in play.
All right. So the card, Jets, Raiders, Chiefs, Texans, Bengals. We do have 2 consensus picks that did not make the card, and we'll keep it in the Big Apple because the Giants travel to Dallas to take on the Cowboys. The Giants are 5.5-point dogs in the contest, but we are all on the Giants. This is another game in my account right now. Brett, you've said stock high, stock low many times on this podcast. And although the Cowboys lost on the opener against Philadelphia, I think people bought back into Dak Prescott, bought back into this offense, and everybody, if they weren't already off the Giants, they jumped off ship last week after they were plastered by the Commanders. I still have the same concerns about this Cowboys defense. Now they have Malik Neighbors coming in who could absolutely thrash this secondary. So again, I think the Giants, while big dogs, can just win this game outright. That would not shock me. So I like them getting this many points in this game. Rule of NFC East as well. Brett, you also have the Giants in your top 5.
Yeah, here we are again. Look, if you think the Giants, given what we saw from them last week, are far worse than you even thought before the season, then yeah, I can see you getting to the 6 here and even taking the Cowboys. But if you had higher aspirations for the Giants coming into the season, are you taking tape from one game and saying that this is a bottom 3 team in the league? Because that's what this line movement is telling me. This moved 3 points off the look ahead, which is a huge move. And this is why they call week 2 overreaction week, right? We finally have some football to watch and make some determinations about these teams. But what did we really even learn about any team last week? I think we saw a bottom range outcome from New York against the Commanders, and it really all started with the offensive line. They were in shambles without Andrew Thomas up front. Javon Kinlaw looked like Reggie White last week, and that's wild to say. It's the offensive line is definitely an issue for the Giants, and it's something to be very concerned about. But am I worried about the Cowboys having the same success? I don't. I believe in this. I believe in this Giants defense. I think they're still very good up front. And like Rich, like you said, the Cowboys on the other side could be a bottom 3 defense in the NFL. Yeah, they held the Eagles to a single field goal in the second half in week 1, but that's a throwaway game. Like, they were in the locker room for an hour. That was expected, right? How are these offenses supposed to be in rhythm coming out of a break like that? So I am expecting a bounce back performance from New York here offensively, and I think the defensive line will have success getting to Dak.
Andrew Thomas trending on returning at tackle. Back in practice yesterday.
I don't know. He did, but I would be surprised if he played. I'll put it that way. I think it's like 40-60 right now. I'm following it very closely with his
leverage you are on New York
on the Giants. I'm following every single injury report, and Andrew Thomas is a big one.
Well, if Andrew Thomas doesn't play, then I'm actually very happy that this did not make our card. The next one, the last game we'll talk about. You know, we give Circa a lot of flowers. We heap tons of praise on Circa. We are amongst their top fans. What the hell did you guys do with this Broncos Colts line? Did they just... What happened? This is a complete
Is it
whiff.
a lock that the Broncos are the number one pick? Like, what's going on here?
What? I need something. I need a press release. I need Benson on a step and repeat, giving a statement. What is this? What is this pick? This is -2.5 everywhere. And every single sharp bettor that makes content was on Denver off of the look ahead even at a flat 3 because they thought it was an overreaction to how poorly Denver played last week. So what is this pick'em? What kind of market movement is going to drive this down to pick in real life? Somebody help me.
Yeah.
Nobody can help me.
I can't, but also, like, I gotta say, you know, this has been sort of a different week for me with travel and whatnot. You know, I haven't been as plugged into the lines, so I was wondering if you guys could tell me what the hell's going on here.
I've not heard one single person in front of a microphone say that that they liked Indianapolis Colts this week. I got nothing. So we all did the same thing. We all did the correct thing. We stat padded. We put an X next to the Broncos, but we knew this line was a joke. So we simply cannot put, I mean, this is going to be crazy, right? Like this
2,000
like,
picks.
I was going to say 2,000.
It'll probably be one of the higher selections in the entire season.
Swing and a miss. You guys do a lot of amazing stuff. This is a catastrophe. This is one of the worst lines they'll ever hang in this contest. Unless they just know something we don't. You know? So those were
Go
the
Colts.
consensus.
For our sake, go Colts.
Exactly. Go Daniel Jones. All right. This is a very interesting Survivor week. Because, as we've noted previously in Circa Survivor, there are these island weeks of Thanksgiving and Christmas in which you have to pick on those short slates. The biggest favorite this week, the Baltimore Ravens, plays on the Thanksgiving slate. Donnie's brought this up previously, where they play the Cincinnati Bengals. So how intriguing of a selection is that going to be? I don't know. But even if you aren't holding them for Thanksgiving specifically, being one of the better teams in the league, they naturally have future value as well. So we can bucket them and the Bills, even though we're all on the Jets, so I don't think any of us are taking the Bills. Those are two great teams that had a ton of future value. After that, the most obvious click this week is the Arizona Cardinals, playing host to those New Orleans Saints. And Brett, I'll start with you because I am terrified at the potential ownership for the Cardinals in this contest.
I am too. The problem is you do have to think about the path and future value, right? The other good spot for Arizona is week 5 against the Titans, but I brought this up in the Discord. I would rather use the Cardinals now than wait a few more weeks for Cam Ward to figure it out and get better. And like I said, I do think the Titans could be a pesky out in Survivor this year. So if I'm taking the Cardinals, I think it's just do it this week. I don't love taking the chalk, but it really does help you set up for a deep run in Survivor if they win. And as much as I preach fading the chalk, path and future value matter too. I guess the question for you guys is, how popular do we think the Cardinals are? I don't know what people are going to do with the Ravens this week. It's such a weird one because, I mean, that kind of sets the whole tone, right? If 30% are on the Ravens, then I think you have to click Cardinals. But if there's only like 15 to 20% on the Ravens, then everyone's going to be on the Cardinals and the Cowboys. I don't want the Cardinals at like 25%. That's gross. It probably will be around 20% though.
Yeah, the other one you brought up there is Cowboys. Those are, I mean, the three most likely candidates to be popular this week are the Ravens, Cowboys, and Cardinals. The biggest wild card, like you said, is Baltimore. How will these people treat a Baltimore team with insane future value and playing on an island slate? I tend to think that this contest is pretty sharp generally. So I think ownership is going to be lower on Baltimore than projections have it, which means that I think ownership is going to be way higher on Arizona and Dallas. So then it's just a matter of Dallas also playing on Thanksgiving, of course. So that's a consideration point with regards to them. With Arizona, I still see some spots down the road. I see week 12 home Jags. Like, if the Cardinals are the decent team that we project them to be, they should be field goal favorites in that game. Week 16 against Atlanta, I think they should be pushing field goal favorites in that game. So I think there's some future value for the Cardinals. Where I landed was the Rams for a couple of reasons. One, to piggyback off of you, I want to be fading Cam Ward now than later in the season. And I also want to be on Matthew Stafford before he gets more injured than he is, because some of the projected future value for the Rams could be sucked up if he's not available. And I see one very big bottleneck spot for the Rams when they host the Saints in week 9. So I don't even want to be tempted to be in that spot. So I'm leaning Rams right now. But I do want to also give love to Detroit and Minnesota. Man, Minnesota before these injuries, I think I would have been on Minnesota if it wasn't for these injuries. And Detroit, I don't think anybody's going to be on them at all after last week. And I do believe Dan Campbell is going to have these guys rip-roaring and ready to go. The problem is they have some great future value in home Browns, home Giants, home Cowboys. So you just be burning some very good future value on them. Mo, where are you at in all this craziness?
So you're making me want to take Baltimore. If they're lower than they should be, then I think Baltimore's my play. I'm between Baltimore and Lions, actually. So I'm just going to say that I do the opposite of what you did, Rich. So I start with my spread picks, and then so I actually had Rams circled for this week. And then once I realized that I thought the market was overvaluing the Rams, because I think they should be like 3.5 favorites and not 5.5. My experience tells me that I should never, ever, ever basically pick a team in Survivor if I think that the spread value is on the other side. and I actually did think Baltimore should maybe be like 13 favorites. We didn't ever talk about that one, so I'm not sure where you guys landed. I'm guessing it was another consensus pick, but okay, maybe not. Maybe that was a split game.
No, it's a split game. I forgot. Yep, it's exactly.
I'm obviously on Browns.
It's a split game that absolutely nobody had an opinion on except for Brett, who did have the Browns. Yeah.
Okay, so if I think the spread value is on the Titans, and it's also just kind of a trappy outdoor cross conference, Matt Stafford outside, road game, early body clock. It's just a lot of stuff that it makes me a little bit queasy on Rams. So I'm gonna stay away from that, and I think I'm gonna take Baltimore. But I do have Detroit as kind of. I have my eye on Detroit as well. It's not because I clicked the Bears in our picks, but I just thought that line was like totally fair. So, if they are that sort of a favorite, and I think it's usable, I guess is what I'm getting at. But I just want to know what you guys think for future value and like holiday value, I guess, on these games, because both of these teams. Like Lions play on both slates, so that's like pretty bad, right? So Ravens play Bengals on Thanksgiving slate, it's hard to see ever taking the Lions versus the Packers, right? At this point, even at home, I'm thinking about that game and I'm like, even if Malik Willis was starting, like, would I want to take the Lions? Like, probably not, right? I mean, the Packers have already shown they can get like reasonable play out of him to where that should be a competitive game. So I can't see taking the Lions there. It's really hard to imagine them taking them on the road at the Vikings too, but that whole slate is ridiculous. So it's like nothing's going to be super attractive, right?
I just wanted on Baltimore. They just have so much future value. Like home Chicago, home Jets, home Steelers, home Patriots. Like,
but this isn't like a super easy week where there's like a tons of great alternatives though.
Yeah, but it's not like
how many weeks are we going to have though of that?
Right. Like I actually don't think this week is as challenging as future weeks might be, right? Like we're denigrating the Rams. The market still has them as -5.5, right? Lions are -5.5. Like there's going to be weeks where there's nobody that you have available that's above a field goal, right? And that's when I want to be like, okay, you know what? Now I'll click the Ravens at home against the Bears, you know? DP, where are you at? Haven't gotten to you yet.
So I'm with Mo in terms of when I originally kind of mapped out a couple plans. I had the Rams in this week, but I couldn't quite get to 5.5 and kind of worry about that spot some. So, I mean, you guys know me. I'm never going to use these holiday teams. I always talk about that. So I think I'm just going to eat the chalk and back the Cardinals. And I understand they're going to be popular. Yes, I get it. I will also say that I think 4,400 people, 22% of the contest, already used them in week one. Not that they won't be popular, you know, but I'm just saying there's a good chunk of them that won't have them available. I feel pretty good. I feel pretty good coming out of week one that Brett and I were on the Jaguars. Yes, they were a little bit more owned than I think we would have liked, but you know, I still think it's pretty good to, you know, have a team, for example, like, you know, just picking the chalk, Denver still available to us. We didn't go that way. We went with the Jaguars. So I like that. I do really like holding on to Baltimore for future value. So, you know, I don't necessarily think the Cardinals have good spots. I understand what you're saying, Rich, you know, Tennessee week 5, Jacksonville week 12. I get it. But yeah, I mean, I think just getting the Cardinals out of the way now against a team that I'm really not that high on in the Panthers, I think it's fine. Listen, I understand the whole chalk argument. I do think at some point you might just need to kind of bite the bullet and eat the chalk, which is fine. But if you're not compounding that by doing that every single week, I think you'll ultimately be okay. But you know, this is just kind of a weird week with how everything lines up specific to this Circa Survivor because, you know, you have these holiday weeks. So I'm likely just going to be on the Cardinals.
It's not like it's 50% chalk either, right? I mean, we're talking about probably 20 to 25%. I think Dallas might be the most popular play this week. I think a lot of people are going towards Dallas just because nobody's used them yet and there's no future value at all. So I think that lines up for Dallas to be the most popular. I don't love the idea of Donnie and I both taking the same teams in the first 2 weeks, but I think that's probably where I'm gonna end up. I am still looking at the Vikes. The Vikes are super interesting just because they also help you set up for a deep run if you use them this week because they have no future value really either. Just looking at some of the optimal path projections, there's a good chance you won't even use the Vikings this season to win it all, which is wild because to me they're a top 10 team, but their schedule is so brutal and even some of the better matchups they have might not be the best plays on the board that week. You might want to go with somebody else. So I'm definitely gonna have Vikes in some of my smaller pools, but they're my second pick right now in Circa. If injury things change today, I might lean Vikes, but right now I think Donnie and I are just gonna be on the Cardinals together.
Yeah, Vikings, the only clear spot I'm seeing is at home against Chicago in week 11. They do have a neutral field game abroad against the Browns in week 5, but do you want to get involved in the international flavor? I'm not sure. So it sounds like Donnie and Brett are both Cardinals. Right now, I guess I'm leaning Rams for the graphic purpose, but I'm very much up in the air. I'm looking forward to hearing Our guy ODB in the DMs, he nailed ownership last week. So I'd like to hear his take before I make a formal decision as well. Mo, for the graphic right now, who you got? Is it Baltimore?
Baltimore. If you guys aren't going to all take Baltimore, then I definitely want Baltimore, because I feel like if there's absolute chaos elsewhere and just the Ravens roll, then we want one Baltimore pick.
I like that. I agree. Yeah, I like that.
I would love to get a positive injury report for the Vikings today because I'm willing to fire. Tough week.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll be talking about it on Saturday,
will.
obviously, too. Because if you want to take Vikes, then I'm not going to take Vikes. I don't think we want 2 on the Vikes. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, right now it's tentative.
Yeah, waiting for Friday injury reports. Waiting for some more data to be collected. Be sure to follow at Gridiron Gamble on Twitter to get our official picks on Sunday morning. Follow these guys on Twitter at Donnie_Peters, at Brett Colston, COLLSON, and at Mo Nawara, NUWWARAH. I'm at Rich T. Ryan. Until next week, best of luck in your betting ventures. Peace.